obviously he's got the ability to opt out of the deal, so we've let him know that we're interested in him coming back, and I think he's mutual interest, but we'll see where things go in the next day or two before free agency starts.
How much of the interest possibilities entails possibly restructuring the deal?
Yeah, I think we've talked about like a lot of different scenarios. Obviously, he could just stay in the current deal, and then other possibilities if he were to opt out, and or just the ability to restructure the deal. We've gone through all different possibilities with him and his agents, and we'll see where it goes.
There is a chance that he's like whenever he passes him back in, he's back. What kind of position?
Yeah, I think we've talked about giving an opportunity to start. I think that's it's important to him. But I think also like he's shown this year he's got versatility to pitch out of the bullpen. He filled a valuable role for us this year. So I think the conversations with him have been getting a sense of what he wants to do, but also the need of our ball club. So I think starting is I think for us it's something we really want to explore with him, and it's something he wants to do. But we also know throughout the year, depending on what happens in the offseason, he's got the ability to do some different things.
How do you view the need for starting pitching you guys have, and what the market has to offer this offseason?
Yeah, I mean, again, like with Darvish, Snell, Musgrove, I think the kind of foundation and the big pieces of the rotation, we feel really good about the top of the rotation. We'll have conversations with Mike Clevenger and Sean and kind of see where that goes. But every year you want to add starting pitching, you want to get depth. I think it was a big part of our success was especially the first couple months of the season, having 7 or 8 starters deep, gave Bob and Ruben a chance to make sure guys were healthy and strong, gave us a chance to go with the 6-man rotation. We're going to try to add to that rotation, and give Bob as many options as we have in the overall from a starting standpoint.
You always thought like you could never have too much pitching, but the last 2 years, 21 really sank you, and last year really helped you. Like how much of the last 2 years bolster that belief you can't have too much pitching?
Yeah, I think it's always been the same. I think in 21 we felt like we had a lot of depth, honestly, and we had as many injuries as anybody in baseball. So I think it was more of a question, hey, how do we prevent that this year? Whether good fortune or obviously we changed some staff members and some programming. We stayed relatively healthy on the mound, but we always want to have a lot of quality starting pitching options. That really didn't change either year. Won't change this offseason either. You've
got some relievers that are likely or could leave. How do you fill those holes?
Yeah, again, I think like same thing in the bullpen. Like it's a good we like the group we have to start. With Hader and Tim Hill, Luis Garcia, Pomeranz hopefully coming back. We'll see what happens with Robert and his situation. But every year you've always got to, look to add to your pen, look at getting different options. Bullpens are, they change really sometimes month to month or year to year. So we always look for some different look guys, and I don't think that I think we'll do that again here this offseason.
How much can you count on Pomeranz?
I think we're again when you miss a season and coming off of surgery. There's always some question there, but I mean the reports from the doctors have been good. They've been good all year, honestly, in terms of in terms of where he's at and where he's showing from from a recovery standpoint. It's a tough surgery to come back from, though. I think a lot of people, he'll it's kind of the idea that he'll be out for a few months. I think you look throughout the league. I learned from talking to Craig Stammen about that. He missed a better part of 18 months or so coming back from it, but. I think Drew feels like the last month or two he's getting himself in a different spot. We're hoping he's ready for the start of spring training.
AJ, what conversations have you had with Fernando about position changes or being open to playing some outfield, and how open is he to not only playing shortstop?
Yeah, we talk about it. I mean, I think a lot of the focus of Fernando is the health component and just getting healthy, and obviously he had the off-season surgery, the shoulder surgery, and then the wrist repair. So I think that's been most of the conversation. But I have talked to him personally about the position. And I think he wants to win. That's the number one thing, and we want him to get him back on the field. I think the next 6-8 weeks going into spring training, we do want to. We'll make sure he's real clear in what the expectations are. Definitely get his feedback some more as we kind of see what the options are for the roster and how he fits in. But I think I said it a few weeks ago, getting him back on the field is the priority. but we'll get more into, as we get into the off season and get into the next couple of months, we'll get more into what position that looks like, or if it's going to be him playing multiple spots, we'll talk about that as well.
I know toward the end of the year when he was going to come back, it was like a center field shortstop kind of thing. Do you still see that as a likely outcome here?
I mean, it could be, but I think honestly, I think things change at different points in time. I think we'll kind of see where it's at, and I think that's the conversation we're having as a group. We'll have with Bob and the staff, we'll have with our scouting and front office group, and then we'll have with Fernando, and kind of look at the roster and see, is it better to try to lock him in at a spot? Is it better for him to come in and move around the field? He's super talented. He's a great athlete. He can play a lot of different positions, so he gives us a lot of options, and we'll try to get that a lot more clear here in the next couple of weeks.
I think you and Bob said recently that, or I guess alluded to the fact that you guys maintained an open dialogue with Fernando during October while you guys were going on this playoff run. What was your sense from him, and is there any noticeable just sort of change in mindset, focus, or what takeaways did you have from your conversation with Fernando?
I think he's he's hungry and to come back, and I think he knows he's got he's got some doubters out there and some people rightfully so. He knows he made a mistake. I think he was excited about the team's success, but probably, I know he wants to be a part of it. So I think all of those kind of mixed emotions from his standpoint. He's had a good, last couple of months in terms of, just owning up to the mistakes and, having the surgery, which is a good step. And, he's been diligent so far in his rehab and what it is. And I think he's as excited as anybody to come back and knows he's got a lot to prove. I think that's kind of been the mindset I get from him, is knowing he's got a lot to prove out there and excited to come back and do it.
Did he stay in San Diego, or did he go back home to the Dominican?
He's been in San Diego for a lot of the off season. He's right now he's back in the DR, which is part of he's had a little bit of downtime from a rehab standpoint, so he's down there. We've got supervision there too as well. But yeah, he'll be going back and forth, but a lot of his off season will be spent in San Diego.
How much of his position is contingent upon what you guys do the rest of the offseason? Who you guys bring in? How much is it to kind of assess his strengths now and figure out where he's going to be?
Yeah, I think a combination. I think a lot of it, though, we know it's what's best for him, what's best for the team. I don't think we anticipate a lot of changes from our position players to club. I think we feel like we have, we can go out and play pretty much right now. It's just a question of hey, what's best for him and what's best for the team, in the next couple of weeks. Again, if there's an acquisition out there that factors into that, we'll have that conversation with him and go from there.
Ha-Seong Kim showed that he's an everyday player, and if so, do you see him at shortstop? And how does that affect where you would, Tatis's future?
Yeah, it definitely shows he can play shortstop every day in the big leagues. That's probably as tough as thing as there is to do in the game in terms of 150 plus games, 8 errors or so. I mean, it felt like if there was a play to be made, he made it. He's a big part for us pitching and defense, and getting to the LCS. I think our pitchers, when there's a ground ball hit anywhere up the middle, he made those plays. So, and then with the bat, again, going out there and 250 with 10 bombs and some big hits in the postseason, getting a lot better from the first year to the second year. So yeah, I think he showed that he can play every day, and I think that's all part of our decision making over the next couple weeks and months.
Fernando he's so talented, but are you a better defensive team with Ha-Seong at short?
I mean, again, Ha-Seong is one of the better defensive shortstops in the league. But, Toddy in 2020, he played, I think, almost error-free baseball for those 60 games. So, I think our best team has them both on the field. I think we'll talk about and look more about how we do that and what that looks like over the next couple of weeks.
What does Jurickson Profar's outfield kind of mean for A, would you be interested in bringing him back, putting him out there, and B, does an outfielder corner guy kind of seem like a need now?
Yeah, we've talked. I think with him as representative, just saying, hey, we have interest in bringing him back. We'll see. Again, he exercised his right, so he wants to see what's out there on the free agent market. Again, I think we feel like we have some internal options. Obviously with Juan and with Trent, it's a good place to start from an outfield standpoint. And I think we'll talk to Jurickson about the possibility of coming back. If not, obviously, that's a spot from another outfielder, whether that's a depth guy or it's an everyday player. We'll have that conversation depending on what happens with Jurickson.
Is Tatis in a corner one of those options?
Yeah, again, those are all the conversations for the next few weeks. And that's where a little bit you kind of see what's out there, on the market. But I think I don't want to really yeah, honestly, the focus with Tatis so far has really been about his health. And I think now we're kind of at the stage where we're going to start getting down with the coaching staff, with Fernando, with our scouts in the front office group, and kind of like, okay, what's best for us, and have more of those conversations. But it has not really been in our mind right now, like, hey, like Toddy in right field, Toddy in left field. It's kind of like, let's get him back on the field, and now the next 6-8 weeks we'll have more conversation and try to make some decisions.
Is that 6 to 8 weeks back to resume baseball activities? Is that what exactly?
Yeah, again, like we'll see how things go in these rehab. I think we've kind of targeted January. So whether that's January 1 or mid-January, we'll see where it goes. I think a lot of that, he'll get some checkups between now and then, both on the shoulder and the wrist, to make sure he's healing properly. And I think we all saw last year, like it's hopefully things go well, but if everything goes well, at some point in January he'll start the baseball activity, and we'll go from there.
And you still expect him to be full go with everybody else when spring training starts?
Yeah, again, I think it all depends what happens here in these next few weeks when he starts getting these checkups and how well he's healing and everything like that. If he hits his time frames and his timetables, I think we feel like, and then he can start doing baseball activity in early January. He should be in a position when spring training starts to be on the field with the group.
Who are your in-house first base candidates?
I mean, I think like obviously from our standpoint we can talk about the 2 free agents that we have, and we'll talk to Josh and Brandon. I think on the roster, that's an area that ultimately it's probably a pretty clear need, is some type of first base DH possibility. We can always move an infielder to first base, and you have another shortstop, second baseman, playing at first base. We'll have to decide if that's best for our club and our group. You could talk about one of the catchers playing some first base. But ultimately, I think that's a spot that's, along with the back end of the rotation, first base is an area we'll look at here in the next couple of weeks.
You'd look at Camposano there?
I think with Campy, he's down playing winter ball in Dominican. I think the real emphasis is continuing his progress and his progression at catcher, and getting him in a spot where he can catch. But I think the question there, he's played some first base a little bit. He's playing a little bit in winter ball. I think he played the other night at first base. I think that's more of a question of getting the bat in the lineup, but I think we'll probably go into the offseason looking at Campy more behind the plate than at first base.
Have you had conversations yet with Manny Machado and Dan Lozano about his long-term future? I know you often, as he's a guy who can opt out next season.
Yeah, not with Danny. I mean, I think we've talked to Manny every year, sit down with Manny at the end of the season and kind of get a end-of-year review and recap, kind of what went well, and more importantly, kind of what are the things that we can improve upon as an organization, what are the things that he wants to improve upon. So, that's been most of the focus. I think Manny's made it very clear he loves San Diego, he loves being here, he loves the team and the organization. He's played very well, obviously, throughout this contract, and I think that'll be something that we'll talk more about with him and his representatives as the offseason unfolds. Yeah. I mean, again, every year is a little different. Every situation is different. I just know the big things with Manny is he's focused on, getting better as a player, getting better as a group. I think, we've been in the playoffs now 2 of the last 3 years with Manny and the MVP, talk really, in 20 and then again this year, and I think a finalist both years. I think his focus is he knows he has a team that can, an organization, a team that can play deep into October. He really likes the city, loves the fan base. I think that's been most of our conversation. I think he wants to stay here the rest of his career. We'll see how it plays out.
With Juan Soto, but what's your impression of the couple months? What do you think? I mean, was he happy being in San Diego? Was the transition tougher for him than he expected? What's your sense of his time?
Yeah, I mean, I think talking to Juan at the end of the year when we kind of had a chance to look back on it. Yeah, any of these trades, like it's obviously new faces, new city, new environment, especially somebody that had signed at 16 years old in another organization. He didn't make any excuses. I mean, I think he really enjoyed his time because it's a good team. He loves his teammates. He enjoyed the city, and I think the atmosphere that we saw at Petco in the playoffs, that's the atmosphere he wants to play in. So I think probably the biggest thing with Juan is just the excitement and anticipation of having him for a full season, and him and not having to make that adjustment, kind of coming in as a Padre next year, spring training, having a full spring training, kind of getting around the group, and then more so just playing every day in San Diego. I think overall, he had a really positive experience, and Juan he made it very clear he loves to win, and he really wants to do it in a city that hasn't won yet. I think that's really exciting to him, and I think he's going to be ready to go at the start of the year.
So how do you approach kind of this offseason in terms of and you don't trade for a guy like that without potentially keeping him around for a long time. Like, how do you approach this offseason in terms of sense of urgency to knowing that you have the time that you do, but what this offseason, the importance of this offseason in that process.
I think well, again, at the right time, we'll sit down and talk with Juan and with Scott Boras and his group, and just kind of get a sense, like anything, of what's important to them. And part of that's probably financial. A big part of that is like, hey, what he's looking to do from contract situation and where that takes us. But we'll sit down and have those conversations, see where it goes, and go from there. And then, as much as anything, we'll be talking to Juan about being ready to come in and have a big year on the field next year, and helping us get another step further.
How was Yu Darvish's performance in this season?
Yeah, I think Yu was obviously a big reason why we, as a pitching staff, it was a big strength for us, and Darvish, at the front of that, was a key part of our success and playing deep in the playoffs. He was a guy, every time he took the ball, I think probably the big thing with Yu this year is the consistency from start to finish. It felt like every time he took the ball, we were getting into the 6th, 7th, 8th inning with a chance to win the game. He'd take out the one start early in the season, and he pitched as well as pretty much anybody in the National League. And look in the playoff starts, he went up against guys like Scherzer and Zach Wheeler and others, and matched them pitch for pitch. So pitched like a front of the rotation guy, pitched like an ace, and he was a big part of our year.
Contract extension?
Yeah, I think with Yu, the biggest thing we've talked about is I think from his standpoint, he's got a year left on the deal. Again, there's interest in him being in San Diego, for an extended period of time, and I think getting to see what he's interested in, like how much, what he wants. I think he's enjoyed San Diego. Again, he's family there and enjoys being there, and I think he enjoys the team. So we'll continue having conversations in the off season, but I think the biggest thing with Yu is he understands how much we value him. He had a great year, and I think the interest is mutual.
Baseball player like Senga and Fujinami. Would you guys talking about a little bit?
Yeah, I think we've again, I think we have a scouting group that values MPB players and specifically Japanese players a lot. I think we'll be very prepared if anybody comes out of Japan, and obviously Senga's free agency. Like we've seen him a lot over the years. I think we'll have our evaluation ready, and ultimately see where things go with those two guys specifically.
Do you think you might have a slight advantage defensively? I mean, the shift has helped some maybe weaker defenders or put guys in position. You have good defenders.
Yeah, I think again, I think we definitely value two-way players and athletes and guys that can play up the middle, and not being able to position as well potentially or make up for some deficiencies. I think athleticism and quality defenders, especially from our standpoint. Hopefully it makes a difference for our club and our team, but I think there may be a premium on that here going forward.
Does that make the avenue of potentially moving another infielder, one of your middle infielders to first base, and base part of time a little more attractive, just having that range?
Yeah, we'll talk about it. That versus obviously the overall lineup and the impact with the bat and everything like that. So that'll be part of all of the conversations the next couple of weeks when we look to try to figure out what's the best fit, and what's the best combination.
Where are you at with your coaching staff and who might or might not return next year?
Yeah, I've been talking to Bob. I think in general, I thought we had a really good year, and I think Bob did a good job. The staff was a big part of it as well. Obviously, Bob's out in front, but the staff did a good job. It's that time of year where there is different conversations, permissions, different teams asking guys under contract. Some guys that we have to get under contract. So I think, again, playing deep in the postseason is always the goal, but it kind of pushes you back on some of that time frame. So we'll probably look to have something finalized in the next week or so with the staff. Say again, Marty. I don't know. I haven't had the conversation with him yet. So I think he's a really good second baseman. I think it's probably good problems to have when you have too many. You have some middle infielders that can play. But again, we're not at that point yet. I think when we get to the next couple of weeks and we get to a better, we get a good feeling from everybody, from how we want to position guys and kind of talk about. But so far we haven't had that conversation with Jake.
Good night to Fernando. Fernando, because you said you've communicated with him. Do you think that mentally he's in a good place right now with what? I mean, he's lost so much this year: reputation, the endorsements, missed the postseason run. Do you think that he is really mentally ready for what he's going to face next season?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's definitely against. It's you know, he's definitely like matured, and like when you talk to him, and I know it's been tough for him. You know, I think it's like, you know, you can look at it and say, well, he brought a lot of this on himself, but you know, it's not an easy situation, and you know, he's handled a lot of situations at a young age in a really positive fashion. The last year, he's had a couple. You know, he's had some of these deals that, you know, hopefully he's going to learn and grow from, and you know, I think so far in the initial period, he's been very serious about, one, getting the surgeries, and then his rehab component. You know, spending the time in San Diego and putting the time in with our PT staff. You know, he's been very responsive to what's being asked for him. He's been asking a lot of questions. Again, like, I think he sees what went on the field. He loves to win. He loves to compete. He wants to be a part of it. I think he's going to be very motivated, and you know, I'm looking forward to when he can start doing some baseball stuff and getting back on the field.
On him, like he has to be on the team, or he has to hear certain things.
That is a conversation. Like, I mean, honestly, like, it's like, at the end of the day, like, he wants to, you know, like, yeah, he knows, like, he wants to be a part of it. He wants to, you know, to make sure that he's out on the field and playing the way he's capable of playing. He knows he let people down. He knows he left the fan base down. And you know, there's not like, we didn't have to mandate anything. I think it's just like, hey, his take right now is, I know like what's best for me. This is what I need to do, and you know, and again, I think one thing was like last year with the surgery component, it wasn't like black and white, you know, kind of situation. Like anytime you have surgery, it wasn't that it was, you know, hey, this was a, you know, 99-1, you need to have this surgery, and he chose to go, you know, 1%, no, I'm going to do that. I think he took all the information in. Ultimately, he made a decision that he thought he could play. You know, he was in a spot where he could play with, you know, with a loose shoulder, and that he wasn't in a position where, you know, even if he had, you know, an issue with the shoulder popped in out of place, he wasn't in a spot where he was like, I couldn't play the next day. So he made an educated decision. He took in a lot of information. He decided not to have the surgery. He did a lot of the same steps this year, probably took a few more steps, and ultimately decided that was best for him. So